Is this the most underrated Rolex of all time? Rolex is a brand which has always been synonymous with success, power and wealth. It has been a status symbol and an icon for generations. Its great prestige and appeal has made it one of the world's most recognisable brands. With so many icons of design appearing on the wrists of some of the most influential people on the planet, namely the Daytona on the wrists of Paul Newman, the day-date being tantamount with presidents and leaders of world governments, and even fictional characters donning the Submariner, such as Bond. With such an iconic presence, I believe that the hype behind such watches have left gaps within the Rolex catalogue for which the products are underappreciated. With the Rolex Air King reference 116900, I will explain to you why this is the most underrated Rolex of all time. So what makes this Rolex so underrated? Well, it comes with a 40mm Oyster case in stainless steel, waterproof to 100 meters. The dial comes with a matte black face, white Roman numerals complemented by white gold 369 markers, along with matching white gold Mercedes hands. This makes the watch have all the design cues and elements to make it a potential icon. Within the case, the movement is the Rolex caliber 3131, based off the 3130, which is a superlative chronometer. It has 31 joules, a 48-hour power reserve, and a frequency of 28,800 beats per hour. So what makes the Air King special? Rolex see the Air King as epitomising its privileged ties with the world of aviation during the golden age of the 1930s. This was a period of great innovation, seeing spectacular progress in aircraft performance, constantly expanded by humanity's capability to conquer the skies. Worn on the wrist of English aviator Charles Douglas Barnard, who set a number of flight records during this period, he said of the Air King, "The peculiar qualities of this Rolex watch render it eminently suitable for flying purposes, and I propose to use it on all of my long-distance flights in the future." This was a statement for the brand, which really set it apart to its competitors of the time, as a true tool watch for aviators. The dial pays homage to such heritage, bearing the name Air King in the exact same lettering as designed specifically for the original model from the 50s. The Air King holds such heritage as being the first watch to fly directly over Mount Everest, exceeding an altitude of 10,000 meters in such extreme weather conditions. This was in 1933, on board with Owen Cathart-Jones and Ken Waller. In 1934, they made the return flight from London to Melbourne, Australia. This journey was recorded in record time, with the Oyster from Rolex being the onboard chronometer. The origins of the Air King stem from World War II, where Rolexes were given to the pilots of the RAF as rewards for their bravery and service. These watches became known as the Air King. So what are the competitors for the Air King? Well, within the catalogue, the Air King competes with the Explorer, the Oyster Perpetual and the Milgauss. The Milgauss, best known for its anti-magnetic properties to 1000 Gauss, which made it so popular amongst engineers of the time. But what makes the Rolex Air King better than the Milgauss as a proposition? Well, they share a movement of the 3131, so the Air King has the same anti-magnetic properties as the Milgauss. As a result, you have to compare them solely on design, as they're both powered by the same movement. The Milgauss comes in white, black and green variations of the dial. Each have the iconic lightning bolt seconds hand. For some, this could be seen as childish and not in line with the rest of the Rolex branding. The dial itself is not particularly legible. The combination of the black, orange, white and green make these watches stand out within the collection. The Air King's dial, on the other hand, has aesthetics that come from the Bloodhound SSC project, which is standing for the Bloodhound Supersonic Car. The dial comes from the two cockpit instruments created by Rolex at the beginning of the project, are within the turbojet engine powered car. This car holds the land speed record of 763 miles an hour, will make an attempt to break 1,000 miles an hour. The 3, 6 and 9 come from the sub-dial within the chronometer within the car. The numerals indicating 5-minute intervals stem from the outer track on such dial. Although some believe this makes the dial quite clustered and messy, I would argue that this gives it a great heritage for the future. The splashes of colour within the Air King dial, coming from the logo and the seconds hand, is the only time in Rolex's history where they've used their iconic yellow and green on the dial together. Such colours are synonymous with Rolex and are fitting on this dial. This fact is rather overlooked within this watch line, and if this watch becomes discontinued, I expect it to rise in value over the years to come. This is the type of negligence now that creates value in the future. Just see with the Daytonas, with the Paul Newman exotic dials, how they were the most underperforming watches at the time. Such dials have now become the most expensive on the market and the most desirable across the world. These small design cues which are overlooked in the past create the value in the future, which is why I believe the Air King is a better proposition to the Milgauss. Comparatively to the Explorer, what makes the Air King a better proposition? Well, the Explorer also has equally as great heritage as the Air King, and a much simpler dial, with the same 3, 6 and 9 numerals adorning the face. Receiving some criticism for being slightly more boring, as there's no pops of colour or interesting detail on the dial, it's also a cult favourite. In some ways it's an understated and professional looking watch that can be worn in almost all situations. However, as this mantra becomes more and more popularised, the prices have begun to rise. The Explorer is getting harder and harder to reach at a reasonable price. The struggle for steel sports watches in the Rolex catalogue is continuing, and the Explorer is becoming difficult to track down as some of the more popularised icons in the model lineup. As the price creeps up, I believe that the Air King is a better proposition and becomes more and more underrated with time. Although the dial is more out there than the Explorer, all of the design elements added to the Explorer to create the Air King are all done with purpose and all have some sort of backstory to them. It might be a slight departure from Rolex Air Kings of the past. Historic models of the Air King also feature the 3, 6 and 9, as well as the historic writing of above the 6 o'clock. This should keep purists happy. Critiques of the business of the dial, I don't believe give enough respect to where this has been sourced from. People criticise Rolex for no longer making tool watches, yet they further criticise when they depart from their historic traditions. In order to be a continuation of a true tool watch, they need to continue to innovate with other industries. With the Bloodhound project, Rolex have done just that, but received even more criticism for it. They've created a new design, something that they haven't done for generations. Every year it seems that they just release new colour schemes of the same watches without any variation, and leave any variations down to Tudor. With the Air King, they've created something truly new and departed from their historic ways, whilst also holding on to some of the heritage that featured in the past. In order for Rolex to keep its continuously iconic status, it needs to create icons for the new generation of watch collectors. Current generations don't relate to the stories of conquering Mount Everest and the wars. The heritage that attracts the current generation needs to be more modern and up to date, and I think Rolex has really identified that as an issue here. Although the dial might not sit well with the purist, the innovations shown within this watch show that Rolex are trying to maintain its status as a historic brand. If not underrated, it is certainly underappreciated. In trying to further their brand and their heritage, they've only received criticism for this piece. I would not be surprised if the Air King of today is discontinued in the next few years, but then becomes an icon in future years, as the design is very unique, along the lines of a Paul Newman. Finally, in terms of comparisons to the Oyster Perpetual line, the Air King is far superior. The Oyster Perpetual seems like an overly stripped back Rolex, which all other watches are based off of in the brand, the heritage of which is shared across every Rolex model which sports the Oyster case. Therefore, there is nothing too spectacular other than a few coloured dials that set the Oyster Perpetuals apart from the other models in the lineup, hence making the Air King a much better proposition. If you've liked this video, please share it and subscribe, as well as liking the video. Any feedback would be greatly appreciated, and leave a comment on what you believe to be the most underrated Rolex. This has been Acquiesce & Co, and thank you for watching.